Imagine you wake up tomorrow and discover that the app you use to talk to almost everyone you know can do something you never expected. You can message your friend. You can call your family. You can join a group. And then, without leaving the same app, you can pay a merchant, order a service, interact with business, search for something, open a digital service, and move through an entire ecosystem built around your identity. Now here is the strange part. That app doesn't have the world's largest messaging audience. WhatsApp does. By 2025, WhatsApp had reached roughly 3 billion monthly active users. Weixin and WeChat together were at around 1.4 billion by early 2026. So if bigger means more powerful, WhatsApp should have already won. But that's where this story gets complicated. Because there are two very different ways to build a technology empire. One company can connect an enormous number of people. Another can try to make those people do more and more of their daily digital life inside the same ecosystem. And China's WeChat took the second path. It didn't just ask, how do we help people communicate? It gradually moved toward a much bigger question. What else can people do after they open the app? That distinction sounds small. It isn't. Because the moment messaging connects with payments, commerce, businesses, services, developers, and digital identity, the app stops behaving like a simple messenger. It starts behaving more like infrastructure. And suddenly, the competition isn't really WhatsApp versus WeChat. It's two completely different visions of what a digital platform should become. One built an enormous communication network. The other built an ecosystem around communication. But here's the twist. WhatsApp isn't standing still. Meta is increasingly pushing WhatsApp deeper into business messaging discovery, advertising, AI. And Tencent continues expanding the WeChat ecosystem through payments, mini programs, search, commerce, and services. So the real question isn't, which app has more users? The real question is much more dangerous. What happens when the world's biggest messaging platforms stop being just messaging apps? Because once that happens, the app with the most users may not necessarily be the app with the most power. For years, the internet taught us to measure power by one simple number. How many people use you? And by that measurement, WhatsApp looks almost impossible to challenge. Billions of people open it every month. Families use it to stay connected across borders. Businesses use it to talk to customers. Friends use it to share photos, make calls, create groups, and send messages that travel around the world in seconds. It is one of the largest communication networks ever created. But there is a problem with using users alone as the definition of power. Because imagine two cities. The first has 1 billion people passing through it every month. The second has fewer people. But inside that city, people don't just communicate. They shop. They pay. They order services. They interact with businesses. They discover products. They use financial services. They access digital platforms. And developers build new services directly inside the city's infrastructure. Which city is more economically powerful? That is the question hiding behind WhatsApp and WeChat. And to understand it, we have to go back to a decision that happened long before either platform became a global giant. WhatsApp was built around an unusually simple philosophy. Make communication easy. Make it reliable. Make it work across borders. And don't bury the user under unnecessary complexity. That simplicity became its weapon. Instead of trying to become the entire internet, WhatsApp became one of the easiest ways to reach another human being. And that created something economists call a network effect. The more people who joined WhatsApp, the more valuable WhatsApp became. If your family was there, you needed it. If your friends were there, you needed it. If your customers were there, your business needed it. The platform didn't have to convince everyone to use dozens of features. It only had to become the place where everyone you cared about was already waiting. That was an extraordinarily powerful strategy. But thousands of miles away, another company was developing a very different idea. Tencent's WeChat began as a messaging product in 2011, yet its evolution did not stop at communication. It increasingly connected messaging with social content, payments, businesses, mini programs, search, and other digital services. And this created a completely different economic machine. WhatsApp could connect you to a restaurant. WeChat could potentially become part of the entire transaction around that restaurant. That difference is subtle, But strategically, it can be enormous. Because every additional activity inside an ecosystem creates another reason for users to stay, and another reason for businesses to participate. More users attract more businesses. More businesses create more services. More services create more reason for users to return. And more activity makes a platform increasingly valuable. It's a flywheel. But there is another side to this story. WeChat's deeper ecosystem doesn't automatically make it better. And WhatsApp's enormous user base doesn't make it technologically primitive. They are solving different problems. WhatsApp became incredibly good at connecting people. WeChat became incredibly ambitious about connecting people to everything around them. And now, in the age of AI, that difference is becoming even more important. Because the next question isn't simply whether you can message someone. It is whether the platform can understand what you want to accomplish and help you do it without forcing you to leave. And that's where this competition gets much more interesting. Because once messaging becomes connected to business, payments, commerce, and AI, the world's biggest messaging app may suddenly find itself competing against something it never originally set out to become. That is where the story begins to change. Because if WhatsApp's greatest advantage is the number of people connected to it, then WeChat's greatest advantage may be something completely different. What happens after people connect? Think about the moment a user opens WhatsApp. You send a message. Maybe you call someone. You check a group. You reply to a customer. Then, for most activities, you leave. You open another app to shop, another to pay, another to order food, another to book a service, another to search, another to manage a business. That sounds normal because we become accustomed to it. But WeChat developed around a different philosophy. Instead of asking users to jump between dozens of separate applications, Tencent gradually built more digital activity around the place where people were already communicating. And one of the most important pieces of that strategy was WeChat Pay. Payments change the economics of the platform because messaging creates communication. Payments create transactions, and transactions create businesses. A customer discovers a merchant. The merchant receives the customer. Money changes hands. And suddenly, the platform isn't simply carrying a conversation. It is sitting somewhere inside an economic relationship. That creates a completely different kind of value. But Tencent didn't stop there. It developed mini programs, lightweight applications that operate inside the WeChat ecosystem. And this is where the difference becomes difficult to see from the outside. A traditional smartphone experience often looks like this. Download an app, create an account, give permissions, wait for installation, use the service, then repeat the entire process somewhere else. Many programs can reduce much of that friction by allowing services to exist inside the larger WeChat environment. For a small business, that can be powerful. You don't necessarily need to convince a customer to permanently install another standalone application just to interact with your service. The service can live closer to where the customer already spends time. And for the platform, every new service makes the ecosystem more useful. This creates a loop. More users attract more businesses. More businesses create more services. More services give users more reasons to stay. More activity makes the platform more valuable. And greater platform value can attract even more participants. That is ecosystem economics. But here's the important distinction. WeChat didn't become powerful simply because it added more buttons. It became strategically interesting because those features began connecting different sides of the economy. Users, businesses, developers, merchants, payments, services, content, and communication. The messaging layer became the entry point. The ecosystem became the destination. And this is exactly where WhatsApp's story becomes interesting again. Because Meta doesn't need to copy WeChat feature for feature. It already owns something extraordinarily valuable, the global network. Billions of people are already there. Millions of businesses are already communicating with customers through Meta's platforms. And that gives WhatsApp something WeChat cannot simply manufacture overnight. Massive global network effects. So Meta faces a very different strategic opportunity. What if WhatsApp doesn't need to become another WeChat? What if it can take the thing WhatsApp already dominates, communication and gradually turn that communication into a business layer. A customer messages a company. The company answers. The customer discovers something. An advertisement creates interest. An AI assistant helps answer questions. A business completes a transaction. Suddenly, the conversation itself becomes part of the commercial journey. And that creates a fascinating possibility. Maybe the future isn't about WhatsApp copying WeChat. Maybe both companies are moving toward the same destination from opposite directions. WeChat started with communication and expanded toward the economy. WhatsApp built enormous communication scale and is increasingly exploring ways to monetize the relationships happening inside it. And now the competition enters a completely different arena. Because if messaging can become commerce, and commerce can become services, and services can become AI-powered, then the most valuable part of the app may no longer be the message itself. It may be everything that the message can trigger. And that leads to the question that could decide this entire battle. What happens when the person you're messaging isn't the most important thing inside the conversation anymore? What if the next thing you interact with is an AI agent that can actually do something for you? But now we reach the uncomfortable part. If WeChat can put more of a user's digital life inside one ecosystem, does that automatically make it more powerful? Not necessarily. Because convenience has another side. The more things a platform connects, the more important that platform becomes. Your messages are there. Your businesses are there. Your payments may be there. Your transactions are there. Your digital relationships are there. And suddenly, leaving the platform isn't simply deleting an app. It can mean leaving an entire network of people and services. That is where switching costs become important. If you don't like a simple messaging app, you can download another one. But what happens when your customers, friends, merchants, services, and digital activities are all connected to the same platform? The cost of leaving becomes much higher. And this is where WeChat's model becomes extremely interesting. But it also raises an uncomfortable question. How much convenience should we trade for concentration? Because the same integration that makes a platform incredibly useful can also make it incredibly influential. And that brings us to privacy. WhatsApp has built its identity heavily around private communication and end-to-end encryption for personal messages and calls. WeChat operates within a very different regulatory and technological environment, and its privacy and data practices have been the subject of significantly different scrutiny. That doesn't mean one sentence like, "This app is safe," and that one isn't, can explain the reality. Privacy isn't that simple. You have to ask, what is encrypted? What metadata exists? Where is information stored? Which company controls the infrastructure? Which laws apply? And what happens when messaging becomes connected to payments, commerce, search, and business activity? Because the more functions one platform connects, the more consequential its data and governance architecture becomes. And this is where WhatsApp has a serious advantage. Its simplicity can actually be a strength. WhatsApp doesn't need to become the place where you do everything. It can remain the place where billions of people communicate. And then Meta can build commercial layers around that enormous network. That's a very different strategy from WeChat. One platform is trying to deepen the ecosystem. The other has an enormous opportunity to monetize the network it already possesses. So which strategy wins? The answer may depend on what the next generation technology looks like, because AI is beginning to blur the boundaries between applications. Imagine opening your messaging app and typing, "Find me a restaurant for tonight." The AI searches. It compares options. It checks availability. It sends the invitation to your friend. You confirm. It helps complete the transaction. And the entire process happens inside one conversation. At that point, ask yourself, is that still a messaging app? Or has it become a digital operating layer? That may be the real future competition. Not WhatsApp versus WeChat. Not America versus China. Not even messaging versus social media. But platform versus platform. The company that controls the conversation may eventually control the transaction. The company that controls the transaction may control the service. And the company that connects all of it with AI could become something far more powerful than an app. But there's a final twist. The future may not belong to the platform with the most users, and it may not belong to the platform with the most features. It could belong to a platform that becomes the easiest place to accomplish what people actually want. And suddenly, the question from the beginning comes back. WhatsApp has more users. So why does WeChat feel more powerful? Maybe because they were never trying to win the same game. WhatsApp built the world's enormous conversation network. WeChat built an economy around the conversation. And now AI is bringing those two worlds closer together. So the question isn't really which app is better. It's much bigger. When the world's digital life increasingly happens inside platforms, who should control the place where we communicate, spend, discover, and decide? That is the battle that has only just begun. So now the question is no longer simply WhatsApp or WeChat. The real question is, what should a messaging app actually become? Should it remain a simple, private tool for talking to people? Or should it become an entire digital ecosystem where you communicate, pay, shop, work, travel, and manage everyday life from one place? WhatsApp has a larger global audience, but WeChat built something fundamentally different. And as technology moves toward AI, digital payments, super app ecosystems, and increasingly connected services, that difference could become even more important. So I want to hear your opinion. If you had to choose one today, WhatsApp or WeChat, which one would you trust with more of your digital life, and why? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you enjoyed this deeper look beyond the obvious numbers, subscribe for more business and technology documentaries that uncover the story hiding behind the products we use every day. Because sometimes the biggest technology story isn't the app with the most users. It's the app that changes what users expect an app to be.